from the Washington, D.C. area. It's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we are going to be talking about peace, and more specifically, the people who work on peace initiatives. And joining me in this first segment is Jessica Lee. Thank you for joining me, Jessica.
Hi, Catherine. Thanks so much for having me today.
And you are the founder of the Community Peace Network, which is one of the organizations involved in putting on this peace walk on June the 2nd in Washington, D.C.
It is.
So tell me a little bit about how you came to be a peace activist. I'm assuming there's a story leading up to this whole peace walk.
Absolutely. I guess you could say I'm a peace activist in many different ways, since peace is pretty all-encompassing. But I guess in regards to Korea, it would go way back since when I was born, because it has to do with my heritage. I come from a Korean family, and I guess you could say I come from a divided family in the sense that that's what got me interested into the affairs of the Korean Peninsula. My grandfather, he was the one who, his family was from what is now North Korea, and so with all the Civil War mushrooming, that's what caused in the chaos for most of his family to flee to the south, but in that chaos, his older brother, he was the brother that wasn't able to make it down to the south in time, and so in 1950, at the onset of the war, that was the last time that my grandfather got to see his older brother, the one that he was closest to and the one that he grew up with. And so the way I grew up was always hearing about this, not so much about the political side of the war, but really from a personal aspect of hearing from my grandfather stories about his brother, and just seeing in my grandfather's life that grief, and just knowing that his brother could be still in North Korea.
Still alive.
Still alive.
But there's no way to know.
But there's no way to know. And I remember as a child, you don't know much when you're a kid, but you hear about your grandfather and you're like, oh, cool, he has a brother too. I have siblings, but you realize that, sometimes I guess maybe I wish I didn't have to see my sister.
Yeah, we all sometimes wish that about our sisters.
But my grandfather, even I remember as a kid thinking how he has a brother and he can't go see him.
And more than that, when families are torn apart like that, there's no closure. So it's not that you can mourn the dead.
Yeah.
There's this unknown that says, is there somebody over there waiting for me? Is somebody waiting for me to come get them? Is somebody waiting for a letter? Is somebody waiting to be reunited with the rest of the family?
Right.
That unknown, it does tear families apart, and I think a lot of times we don't focus on that as one of the most terrible byproducts of war.
Just everyone's experience, even just maybe like waiting on a ride.
Right.
And that waiting, that feeling of, are they coming? Are they not? Should I be watching for them? Whereas if you knew that they said, I'd be there in 15 minutes, right? It's a very different kind of feeling that you have in that 15 minutes. And so I really have seen firsthand in my grandfather's life, which then affected my whole family, which is, you're right, there's no closure. And it's a very heavy weight and a burden that one carries for their entire life, and just holding on to that hope of maybe one day being reunited with his brother, and just all that would carry.
So there's a large Korean American population here in the Northern Virginia area, and specifically in Fairfax County, and even more specifically in Fairfax City where I live. There's just a lot of Korean Americans here. And again, I don't know that a lot of Americans, other kinds of Americans, understand the history of how many people came here, or the history of the strife that started in 1950, because the Korean War, or this division between North and South Korea, has been going on longer than I have been alive. It's been going on for 68 years. So that has to impact a lot of families, and I think maybe we don't always look at our neighbors who are Korean American and wonder whether or not they've been caught up in family members that are missing, or families that have been divided, or people who got left behind. But clearly that's an impetus for you. I mean, are there a lot of others in the Korean community who are focused on this?
I wish I could say that this is a really unique story, but unfortunately, if you imagine, it was a whole nation that was divided at a parallel, and then from there on, you know, the ones who made it south were the ones who are able to have contact with the rest of the world now.
Right.
So when it comes down to it, there are absolutely a lot of families that are affected by this, and what's really weighs on my heart is the fact that as time has passed, like you said, it's been over 60 years. Life happens, which means
some people are no longer with us, but we don't know what happened to them.
Exactly. And so how timely are all the developments because of the hope that it brings, because unfortunately, right, life is not perpetual. And so there are a lot of families who are now on the cusp of really wondering, are my family members still alive? Will I ever get the chance of seeing them again?
So is this rally then to kind of support this amazing initiative? There's going to be a meeting in Singapore on June 12th, which is really like, it's less than 30 days away. And it came up to me very quickly how the whole thing got put together. But this is sort of exciting, yes? And is this peace rally meant to support this initiative?
I mean, it's very exciting. Again, like we said, it's been over 60 years. That's a very long time. And there have been some maybe little baby steps here and there, but with this summit coming up, there is a lot of hope for something to actually be implemented. And, you know, the hopes are very high. In terms of the walk itself, I think what's really special about this walk is the fact that, like you mentioned, a lot of people might not be aware about the exact ongoings, what's happening on the Korean Peninsula, or even the history of the Korean War, or even what the summit is going to be all about, what's there to talk about.
True.
But with this peace walk, what it really is, it's really inviting anyone who has a desire for peace, a heart to see an increase in harmony, in cooperation, really a cry and just coming together and gathering our voices to say, we don't want hostility. We want to work together, and whatever that looks like, because I know that there are a lot of different views on even the possibility of a complete unification, you know, what that would look like. Which is kind of a big,
Renew unification would be a very big, hairy, audacious goal, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe a smaller one would be opening of the borders so that people could more freely pass between North and South Korea. And again, because it helps both of those countries learn where the opportunities are to build better economies and a better quality of life, but also for people to try to find their family members as well.
Yeah, so there are just so many factors. There's a lot of steps into going into seeing something actually happen, because there have been talks in the past, not of this nature. So we'll have to see what happens. But in terms of what we're doing now and the timeliness of it all, something that we're really trying to do is to gather the hearts of people, to even put on a public display of how much we want this and how much it's worthy to be celebrated, this concept of peace and actually seeing developments and working together and progress.
You know, and I think that's so important too, because there are people who are interested in developing peace around the world, among many nations, among all nations actually. I'm a Rotarian, and as a Rotarian, this is something Rotarians have worked on since Rotary was founded, but as an international organization, focusing on peace missions, you know, we actually have peace academies. We do a lot around peace, and we have 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. So it's a very worthy sort of effort to say that academics and research and resources and scholarship should be focused on the issue of peace and how we can make peace more of an agenda item in countries that are experiencing conflict. So right now we're focused on Korea, but your effort is more than just Korea. It goes well beyond that to all kinds of other places that are in conflict.
Right, because peace is something that affects everyone, and that's why so much of the time it's a global peace that's talked about. But in the sense of, with the Korean Peninsula, the developments that are happening now, part of the impetus for a peace walk is to really capitalize on the momentum that's happening so that we can shed light on what's going on in Korea, because what a shame it would be if we didn't get to really celebrate how amazing it is that these developments are happening. After all these years, to see just on a global scale a whole country where kids who are born now, all they have known is a North and a South Korea.
That's true. And
so for them to be able to see this happening, that talks are happening, that there are many people who desire peace, whatever form of unification can happen, but that even the youth of our time can really see that it's more than just what we see a lot of on the news, which is provocation. A lot of, unfortunately,
people are quick to jump into conflicts, right?
Exactly.
Especially when you have a lot of weapons, and it's what it's like, my weapons are bigger than your weapons, and let's just go to war. There is, when you've got the ability to threaten another country or to engage in conflict, it's too easy. Exactly. I think it's way too easy for countries to choose war over peace.
And something that's interesting is even seeing how that's played out on the peninsula in South Korea, because if you think about it, even the kids there who are born, all they've heard of is the separation, the division and hostility, even if they live there. And so compared to the past generations of those who even knew personally a unified country, this generation who have never known that or are losing their own personal family ties to ever knowing a unified Korea, the different polls in Korea are showing less of a support for unification. There's again a lot of factors to that, but one thing that really shows is the fact that even because of this generation not really even living in a climate where there is talks of peace, developments of peace, what they know is that, is that possible? Do I even care about this? Because a lot of the attention is on, even in Korea, is like, how is this going to affect my life?
Right. Like just the nitty-gritty kitchen table issues. What does this mean for how we work and how we travel and what we have? And no, I understand that this is an upheaval for people. The status quo is a very difficult thing to move in any direction.
Absolutely.
Even if it's a bad situation, at least it's a bad situation that you know, right? It's like, I know this terrible situation. So, giving peace a chance sounds like a song to me. I think it is. But the possibility of peace is something that I think this is a wonderful reason to have a walk and to raise the visibility. So when we come back from this break, we're going to be talking with Jessica Lee, founder of the Community Peace Network, about this upcoming peace walk in Washington, D.C. on June the 2nd. So please join us after the break.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, Hard, what's this? That's my resignation. You're resigning? Why? You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit. Oh, I forgot. I'll do better. Please don't quit on me.
Don't let your heart quit on you. Get your uncontrolled high blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late.
So you can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bag your lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally. I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands? My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did. Mm-hmm.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that. Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed. And in this segment, we're talking with Jessica Lee, who is the founder of the Community Peace Network. Thank you so much for being here, Jessica.
Thank you again, Catherine.
So you are from this greater Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and we talked before about the fact that there's quite a large Asian community here, specifically Korean Americans. And so you have built, in your interest in pursuing peace, lots of relationships. So tell us a little bit about how you actually decided we're going to do this walk.
That's a great question. I guess it starts with, I could start off by saying I never intended to start something, to start a walk, but it really happened because there are so many people who really love peace and really want to do what it takes just to gather voices and make it heard. And I mean, it comes down to just wanting to make the world a little bit better for future generations. So I guess it started with the fact that that's just always been a passion of mine. Actually, CPN is not my day job. It's actually a completely volunteer organization. And so even within my job, I pursue part of my passion, which is empowering women.
Right, me too. I do that too.
Way to go, Catherine.
I know, right? We're all in this together.
Yep. So I mean, in that, what I help to do is in the setting of helping domestic violence survivors. So what you see in that, I mean, because that may seem maybe unrelated to global peace, but even in that setting, I really learn a lot and really even grow my passion for a wider piece, which is the fact that you can see so much maybe like tension and hostility even in day-to-day life, in our personal interactions within our families, which then extends to your neighborhood, your community.
It escalates.
It escalates.
It escalates. So when we tolerate violence in our families and in our communities, we shouldn't be surprised that hostilities escalate into greater conflicts and wars, because we've normalized violence. Mm-hmm. At every level, we've just normalized conflict. And you're right, that doesn't have to be normal. We do not have to make that the normal.
Exactly. And so what you see is that there are a lot of people on board for that, right? We want to, especially in really acute ways, help someone's life improve for tomorrow. But what we see is like even with people who have these kind of maybe like target interests of what they want to advocate for, what's so amazing about like Community Peace Network and all the partners that we work with is the fact that, together, what brings us together and binds us is that we all want this peace.
Right. It's a community goal. And so everybody's put their lot in saying that I'm going to bring my time, talent, and treasure to promoting peace.
Exactly. And there's so many organizations who do really amazing work in different specific ways. So when we come together, what we bring is a lot of expertise, even and more networks and ideas, and just, I guess, like when you have a party,
right?
The more the merrier.
Right, and people meet other people. And then the momentum, that's what makes a moment of movement too, is when you discover that you're surrounded by people who are passionate about this, but they haven't really found a group, or they haven't found a friend, or they haven't found somebody who shares their passion. When you bring people together in a room, suddenly you discover it's not just me. Yeah. I'm not all by myself and wanting this to be a priority. But you're right. I mean, being a grassroots activist, sometimes you have to, this is people powered. Exactly. So it's people powered. And the only people who are really going to bring peace to these countries are the people who live there.
Exactly, and that's the message that we hope to spread through this peace walk, which is, I mean, I would imagine that most people you ask, do you like peace?
They go, yeah, sure, I love peace.
Yeah.
But what are you willing to do, right? And how much of a priority is it in your daily life to seek peace, promote peace, fund peace, build structure around peace initiatives? Again, that's one of the things that I love about Rotary, is because we've built structure around that. Right. We have made it a global priority. And that's something that all Rotarians embrace. But people who aren't in that particular organization are left to find like-minded individuals on their own.
Exactly, and I think like something with the walk, where it's a a pretty low barrier way to be able to engage in something. So it's a good way for people who can find that, well, maybe I haven't found my people, or I haven't found exactly what I'm interested, or the causes that I want to support or even die for. It's a really good way to come together with people, and because of participation, that their interest for it can grow. And once someone's interest for it grows, then just like you said, a lot of what follows can really blossom as well, which then brings more people together who are working together for a same goal, which, you know, I personally believe is a very worthy goal.
I do too. Let's talk a little bit about the logistics. So it's going to be in front of the White House at 9 a.m. on June 2nd?
Yes, so Saturday, June 2nd.
And where can people find information? Are you out where they can follow you on Twitter? How would people find out more information about what's going to go?
Yes, so we are on Twitter. We have a website. The website is www.walkforpeaceandunity.com.
Okay.
The Twitter hashtag is the same, Walk for Peace and Unity. And so just by checking those out, they can be able to see more information, more of the logistics and details, and also sign up and be able to join that way.
And you kind of have this idea in your mind of how it's going to be symbolic. Explain that to us.
So with this Peace Walk, what we are hoping to do is, I mean, the White House in itself is symbolic.
Yes.
But really in gathering together, what we hope to do is even be able to, you know, in two groups, go around the White House and then gather together at the end. So, you know, nothing specific in its meaning, but really just symbolizing how everything is better when we can come together and work in harmony rather than fighting against each other.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So we've got somebody who's called in and left us a message asking, like, if it starts at 9 a.m., how early should people get there, and what about public transportation?
Sure. So public transportation, you know, one can find the different
maps on the Metro. So Metro is a great way to go.
Exactly. I mean, parking on the weekend is
very hard. Very hard. You're better off taking the Metro.
Yeah, and of course it's not too far from the Metro. In terms of it starting at 9, I mean, that's a good time to just arrive by.
Okay.
I can talk a little bit more about what we can expect. It'll start off at the time of like gathering at the White House, and just to mention, I know there's a lot of peace walks, especially not peace walks, but different walks and marches in DC. So they all kind of have a different flavor.
Right.
But this one, what we're really intending is for it to be very celebratory.
Right.
Like a time where, you know, more than being somber, it's really a time to gather together and to celebrate the different developments and progress and just the solidarity that humans can have, that mankind can come together.
So you will have speakers, yes?
Yes, we'll have speakers, we'll have art displays, we'll have music, and hopefully we'll have a really good time in being able to join together.
Okay, so let's bring in Michelle from Falls Church is on the phone. Michelle, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Great. What is your question?
Hi, so I just wanted to call in to say that, you know, Jessica, you're doing such a great work. Keep it up. I was just wondering, are there any more ways that people can get involved that live in the area?
Oh, great question.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, Michelle. Yeah, absolutely. A good way is for, if you check out on our page, you can also find more information. But really just being a person who advocates for peace in their own personal lives, I think that's something that furthers our mission a lot. In terms of other events that can come down the road, like being involved in that as well. And in terms of also the events that our partner organizations are having, you can check that out on our website as well for our different organizations that host many, many different things for people who love peace and want to also celebrate that in different ways.
And I think there's other organizations too, broader organizations that have peace as one of their initiatives as well. So I think to answer Michelle's question too, there's peace organizations, and you can probably Google peace organizations, but there's a lot of other organizations that just have as one of their core values or as one of their core initiatives that they work on peace issues. So there's probably a lot, especially in the Northern Virginia area. We just have a lot of nonprofits and a lot of grassroots organizations, and as you said, yours is all volunteer. There's a lot of wonderful organizations that are all volunteer.
Yeah. And a good way to help is just to spread the word. To say, hey, do you like peace? You want to come to this peace walk? Because it's going to be a time where there's going to be so many different people gathered, and it's a really beautiful time to see how we can even show our youth that peace is really worth celebrating.
Well, you know, and that's a nice segue into our next segment, because we are going to talk about getting young people involved and focused on issues of peace and also raising up the work that they're doing. So just some closing thoughts. Where do we go from here? So June 2nd's the Peace Walk for Unity, and you'll be following up. You know, do you want people to sign up? Are you trying to find a way to get back in touch with people after the walk?
Yes, absolutely. So on the website, there will be the ability to go to like an Eventbrite site as well, which is sort of a good way to actually sign up.
Right. And the reason that you ask people to sign up too is it's like, if you want to be with your people, if you think you found your people, then we want to include you the next time we hold an event. So it'll be much easier if we reach out to you instead of waiting for you to find the information.
Exactly. So thank goodness for technology.
I know, I love it.
And the way that it brings people together. So we're really hoping that many will come and join us at our Peace Walk and really have a good time. I think that's what we really want, is a time to celebrate all that's going on in the peninsula. There's a lot unknown, right?
There is a lot unknown. Now, you're right. We should celebrate this small step because we don't know ultimately, but shouldn't we celebrate the fact that this is even on the table, that it's even happening, that world leaders are willing to sit down and talk about peace as a possibility? Shouldn't we celebrate that? Maybe it will encourage more people to do that.
Exactly. So that's our hope, and we hope that just going forward that there'll be even more reasons to celebrate peace.
Well, I hope you're right, because I think that, you know, by bringing two leaders together, you know, just such a short time ago, they didn't even speak to each other. I mean, it was pretty hostile. Do you think the turning point was the Olympics?
I mean,
that was kind of a significant thing.
I mean, even you see in families, like, sports can bring people together or tear them apart. So I think maybe that was a very large contributing factor. I mean, I can't say for sure.
I can't either, but it seemed to me at that point, it's kind of like when they sent a delegation of athletes into Seoul, South Korea, it's kind of like there's something different about this whole situation. So, I mean, I think we have a lot of reason to be optimistic, and I want to applaud your efforts for being optimistic and creating a happy occasion to celebrate, you know, the very idea that world leaders will sit down and talk about how peace should be a priority and a possibility for all of us. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine.
So after we get back from this break, we're going to pivot just a little bit. We're going to be talking with Margaret Fisher about the Student Peace Awards here in Fairfax County. Every year, they recognize the efforts of young people like Jessica, who's not a high school student, but she once was. So please, join us after this break when we will be talking more about peace.
Art, a universal language and expression. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs or to make a tax-free donation, contact C. Fripp at AOL.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read. and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America and Reading is Fundamental.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Inside Scoop. Tonight we are talking about peace. And in this segment we are specifically talking about the Student Peace Awards here in Fairfax County. Joining me is Margaret Fisher, who is the organizer of these Student Peace Awards. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Only one of the organizers.
Well, so there's several organizers, or many organizers.
Many organizers.
So I have to confess, I was not aware that this program existed, despite the fact you had been around since 2006. And you are actually supported by two Rotary clubs, the Rotary Club of Reston and the Rotary Club of Alexandria. I'm in the Rotary Club of Centerville Chantilly. Clearly we're not on your radar. I'm sure you want to fix that.
Yes, I'd like to fix that immediately.
But it's 2006, man, that's a long time. That's 12 years.
That's true, but we started out with only one school. So our goal here is to promote peace, and we want to do that by raising its profile among high school students. So we are giving awards to high school juniors and seniors who have done something to promote peace or nonviolent conflict resolution. And when we began, we offered it in one school, which was Herndon High School, and then we offered it in two schools, and then we recruited more sponsors, we meaning Herndon Friends Meeting, which is a Quaker meeting that I belong to. We recruited Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church, and then some other churches, and then a bunch of secular organizations as well, including two Rotary clubs, yes, and George Mason School of Conflict Analysis and Resolution.
That is such a great school. You know, I went to Mason back when that school, the Center for Conflict Resolution, was first started, because I'm a 1984 graduate of Mason. And so yes, that was such a great model, and it has impacted this area exponentially. Just to give an example of why pursuing peace makes a difference, is because the Center for Conflict Analysis, which it's now called, has branched out into every aspect of helping this community, helping Northern Virginia. So how do you find these, well, should we start first with how do you find the students, or how do you find the organizations that support you? Where do you want to go with that?
Well, let's talk about the students.
Let's talk about the students.
We now offer this award to a student or a group of students from every high school in Fairfax County, which is 31 schools. And we allow the schools to choose the students.
Okay.
So we give them some general guidelines, but they can make their own method for selecting the student, which usually means that the Career Center specialist sends out a memo to the staff asking for nominations, and the students often self-nominate as well.
Right.
But the school decides.
Right.
Because they know the kids.
That's fantastic. Well, I just looked through the profiles of the 23 students who won this year, because the awards event was in March at the Sherwood Center, and I looked through the profiles. Incredibly impressive what these students are doing and what these organizations are doing.
It is, and it is very impressive. It just illustrates that there's enormous potential for creative peacemaking, and that peacemaking can be done deliberately. Although these students weren't necessarily having the word peace in mind with their activities, but nevertheless what they did results in more peace.
Yeah, and so I think with 3 of the students that I saw, they were working with NAGASEC, which is an organization that I've actually had on here before, and so I've actually interviewed the executive director of NAGASEC before, and so it was interesting to me to see that there were 3 students who actually worked or all went to a retreat that was sponsored. So I was looking through their profiles and realizing that I'm aware of some of the organizations that they're doing work with, and there are so many, as I discussed with Jessica, in this area. I mean, students have a choice of what to pursue.
That's for sure. And many of them actually created their own activities from scratch. It's quite astonishing how they went about that. So, for example, the students that you referred to got together on their own in their school at Annandale and started working and lobbying in support of DACA. And that included lobbying their congresspeople and having sit-ins in their senators' offices. And then other students have done things like on their own created international charities to support victims of domestic abuse in other countries, for example, or to help impoverished people or provide clean water. So we have things that have to do with the international piece, but then there are students who have been working very locally, even on a very personal level, to promote peace in their school environment around them. One group last year, for example, what they did was they were perceiving some tension in their school, and they wanted to relieve that. So they went around and anonymously put candy bars in people's backpacks and lockers to cheer up the school community.
See, and I bet it did, didn't it? Right? Give students candy, it's going to be a thumbs up all the way.
Totally.
Well, I like the fact that the umbrella for what peace means is so broad.
Yes.
It's not narrow, and it allows students to actually think about what it would mean to support peace in a variety of different avenues. And it sounds, like I said, you know, in the last 12 years that you've been doing this, there are students who've just done astonishing things.
Indeed.
So tell us a little bit about the organizations that support this effort.
Well, first of all, it's very fun. We have a meeting just once a year, so it's not a big obligation, right? And plan for the next year. And so we invite any nonprofit, anyway, organization, secular or religious, to join us in this effort. And each organization only has to contribute $200.
Oh, that's amazing.
But most valuable of all is the volunteer help that we get. And we need that because after we've collected the nominations from the schools, then we have a volunteer go interview each of the students and learn all about them and write up a profile about them. And then in March we have a big reception for them where we read about them to the audience, for their family and friends, and give them their check. Right. And we have often had prominent guests to help us with that recognition. So, for example, Congressman Connolly was there, and Sharon Boulevard, and Ken Plum, and 3 members of the school board. So it's a very big deal and very moving, very gratifying to their family. And then we have a guest speaker. So that's a big thing to organize, and we have people helping with that. And then at the end of the year, we go out to each of the schools and present them with the actual certificate of award at their honors
right, at
assemblies.
the end of the school year.
Yes, assuming their school has such an assembly.
So I know it said in looking at your website, and you do have a website, looking at your website, that you actually put the call out in October and make a decision in December, so that these young people have this, because as juniors and seniors, many of them are applying to colleges, I'm assuming.
Yes, and we have had feedback that it has been helpful for students who are applying to have that on their resumes.
Oh, I think so. I mean, that's just part of the whole, you know, this is who I am. And doing your reception in March is also a good idea too, because it gets so crowded toward May and June when they're actually trying to finish up. Sharon Boulevard, Jerry Connolly, Il Young Moon, Ryan McElveen, Janie Strauss. I know that they were all at this event. Wonderful people.
They were wonderful.
They are wonderful, and I love the fact that they're supporting this kind of effort that is out of the bounds of academics. And that's one of the things that I find really appealing about this, is that it is not just a matter of achievement. It's about doing good for the sake of doing good.
Yes, and none of them really did this with recognition in mind.
Right.
And in fact, when schools have tried to have kids self-nominate as their only way of getting kids to
it doesn't
nominate,
work.
It doesn't work.
Because they're not self-promoting. That's not why they did this work.
Exactly.
So you kind of need adults to recognize the efforts, I think, of the kids. Yeah. So you said there's 31 schools. You had 23.
We actually had, excuse me to interrupt, 24, because the Saudi Academy, which is a private school,
I was going to ask you about that.
We also offer it in, and they have had a student every year. And interestingly, actually, a very significant minority of the recipients have been Muslim over the years.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. So the 23 just refers to the Fairfax County Public Schools. I did see that you offer this out to private schools as well.
Yes.
And that's very interesting to know that school always has both a nominee and an awardee every year.
Yes.
So can the schools just do one nomination per school?
One nomination per school.
Okay.
Sometimes we've been asked to adjudicate, but we don't know the students. They have to choose.
Right. And so when your volunteers go out, they're basically going out for the purpose of interviewing the student to write the profile then?
Yes. Yeah, so nomination isn't the right word. The students do the selection.
Right.
And we accept their selection.
I think that's fantastic. And this must be very rewarding for the people who go out and do the interviews.
It's fantastic.
I mean, just meeting the kids. I've known other people who've worked for other organizations that give out scholarships where they either review the applications or they meet with the students. And to the last one, they're like, it's some of the most rewarding conversations that they have is talking with these young people about what it is they want to do and what their hopes and aspirations are.
It's very inspiring. Yeah, it makes you realize that the rest of us can be peacemakers too.
So are you going to try to scale this any further? Like you've got your organizations and you've got your students, but there's probably a number of private schools in addition to the public schools who might be eligible.
If there are other private schools who would be interested, we'd be very happy to include them.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we've scaled as far as we can go. It's a big effort already, but what we really are hoping is that people in other school districts will start similar projects. And as a matter of fact, a couple years ago, a group in Frederick, Maryland started a student piece of words of Frederick.
How about that? And I have a very good friend who's in Frederick, Maryland. I must ask Val Dale about this because she would be the person who would know. But I love this idea of a replicable model.
Yes, we're hoping it will take over the world and we'll have peace spreading.
That is fantastic. It really is. And I'm assuming this started out as an all-volunteer organization.
It continues as one.
It continues as an all-volunteer organization. Yes. Well, I think you know there's certain groups that you can count on. The Friends and the UUs are always, the UU congregation is always pretty reliable for initiatives like this.
They are.
But we're talking about Rotary clubs, and I certainly think that there are some untapped Rotary clubs in this area who just don't know, like I don't know, that you exist.
We would love to have more people join us. First of all, it's fun, and again, just a way of spreading the word about peace. But also, at this point, our actual award is kind of token, and when we're at these award ceremonies, we're standing up there with our $200 award, and the next person on stage might be giving a $400,000 military scholarship.
So when we come back from this break, we're going to talk with Margaret about how all of us can be part of scaling not necessarily the scope, but the rewards that these students are getting to further the work that they are all doing here in Fairfax County to support peace initiatives in whatever avenues they have found to be the most effective. So join us after the break.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow! Oh!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent. Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Inside Scoop, I'm your host, Catherine Reed. Tonight we are talking about peace. And in this, our final segment, we are talking with Margaret Fisher, who is one of the many organizers of the Student Peace Awards of Fairfax County. And I'm so glad you're here because I didn't know anything about this, and you think I would after 12 years. So tell us a little bit about some of the projects that really have kind of you've found remarkable, and the kids that you found remarkable that are doing these things.
I think you can divide their achievements into a few different kind of categories. So for example, there are a number of students who've done things to raise awareness of injustice or violence, often international, not necessarily. So examples of that would be students who work with an Amnesty International club to raise awareness about torture in the world. And then there are other people who are themselves in a minority group of some sort who have been, who courageously stand up and speak out to reduce stigma or to promote understanding of their group. Examples of that might be students who are in the LGBT community, or Muslims who getting together with a Muslim student association to promote understanding, cross-cultural understanding there. And then there are students who've done things to foster communication between groups that historically have been in conflict. So for example, blacks versus whites, or Muslims versus Jews, that kind of thing.
Right, historical, you know, and we all kind of get into our groups, and we tend to see people through the lens of the thing we believe is the way it should be seen, you know, but I like to say that life is about perspective, and what you see depends on where you're standing. And this is where empathy becomes something that, you know, these are the soft skills that are not necessarily taught in schools, but I think they should be taught in schools, is that we need to learn to empathize with other people and to try to see the world from their perspective.
Yes. So, you know, there are many students who may be very unaware of the injustices in the world, and have maybe learning about it and want to share their knowledge. An example of that, last year, 2 students did a documentary, quite a professional documentary about political oppression in Papua New Guinea.
Who knew about that?
Yeah, they did it. They interviewed a leader there who had been persecuted and had to flee, and then they presented their documentary at a film festival in California.
That is super impressive.
Yeah, it was very impressive.
So talking about trying to scale the size of the awards, if kids got a little bit more than what you're able to give them at this point, this might enable their work.
Yes.
One could surmise if they had a little bit more. As you said, not everything requires necessarily an investment of cash, but it would seem to me making a documentary is one of those things that might need a little bit more.
That is true. And some of their international organizations or local organizations could definitely use some money. Often if the student has been working with any kind of group at their school, they will actually donate some of their money to the school. And we encourage that because our award consists not only of some money for the student, but also some money that they get to designate to a nonprofit.
Right.
And the nonprofit they designate can be anything that promotes peace, and a lot of the time that would be something like the local school organization that they're working with. And yeah, and those organizations then get to have some money, which they wouldn't have any money otherwise.
Well, raising money is hard, and I think raising money is hard when you're a young person, and especially if you're doing something as a part of a school organization instead of part of like Amnesty International, where there's different kinds of resources with larger organizations. Yeah. But we have a very international population here in Fairfax County. It's one of the things that we talk about all the time. It's maybe not true elsewhere in Virginia or elsewhere in the greater metropolitan area. But we have a lot of international students, and a lot of them come from countries that are in conflict, and they have lived a different life than people who were born and raised in the county. Do you see that a lot of your awardees come from this very international population?
They definitely do. So there are students who have little awareness before this about injustice, and there are students whose whole life has been about trying to overcome difficulties and injustices. So for example, our recipient from Mountain View fled as a minor to this country to seek asylum by himself.
Wow.
Yeah, and was granted asylum. And in order to support himself, worked as a day laborer and went on to become a leader of the day laborers, speaking out for understanding of their
You know, and this is where like life intersects, because I am with the Rotary Club of Centerville and Chantilly, and Jerry Foltz is in my club, and he and Alice started the Centerville Immigration Forum, and my Rotary Club supports the Centerville Labor Resource Center, and we give scholarships to Mountain View.
How about that?
Right? So this is just, but this is an example of how the community does need to come together. I don't know this specific young man, but I can tell you that this is something my Rotary Club does, is support young people like this, and the Centerville Labor Resource Center, which supports day laborers, which I think are very much a misunderstood group.
Yes.
So I'm thinking to myself, so what could that young man do if he had more resources to go out there and do more?
He's phenomenal, yes. Last year, I think it was, there was a student from the, now I'm blanking, but a community in Syria that's been persecuted. He and his family fled here, and then when they were, members of that community were being bombed on some mountain in Syria, he actually helped the U.S. government figure out where to
drop
humanitarian aid because he knew the geography.
Wow, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways, and if you really think about it, and this is what I love about your program, is that you're giving people a platform. You're not giving them a platform, they're doing the work. Your platform just recognizes and rewards and raises up the visibility of what they have imagined can be done.
Yes.
And that is so different from the other experiences that students have, because this is really not achievement-based, right? It's not...
Well, not scholastic achievement.
Not
based.
scholastic
Right,
achievement. It's
yes.
basically that you went out and you did something, and as you said, the staff at the schools are the ones who are basically evaluating what's going on in the school and saying, this is the group or this is the individual we think is the one that should be recognized for their efforts.
I think it's fair to say that war and conflict is often a sign of lack of creativity and lack of imagination about possible solutions to problems. And these students are illustrating that a little creativity can change the whole paradigm.
This is amazing. So since 2006, it's 12 years later, you're still going strong. Tell us a little bit about your compadres, the people who are helping you do this, since it's not just you.
Well, many of them are members of Herndon Friends Meeting. Quakerism is traditionally a peace church. Another peace church that has joined us is the Daniels Run Peace Church.
Oh, great.
Which is a Mennonite
it's right down the street
condition.
from me. Right down, literally down the street from me.
But there's a Catholic church, there's a Presbyterian church, United Church of Christ, a lot of faith communities, right? So, each of them sends representatives to help us plan. They're just the most fantastic people, and it's been eye-opening to me because I was raised a Quaker, and I thought of Quakers as having some kind of monopoly on peace, but no.
Peacemakers in other churches.
There sure are.
Well, that must be kind of interesting, though, just to have a larger group of people in different faith communities. You must meet some very interesting people and form relationships you wouldn't otherwise have.
That's very true. It's been wonderful. I'm so grateful to them. And they all step forward when they're needed.
Well, that's fantastic. So now you're into this cycle, so you are done for this year.
Yes.
And you don't have to do anything until the fall.
Not quite. There's still a couple honor ceremonies still to go.
At the end of the year, award ceremonies. That's true.
Right. Now we're just trying to raise a little money. We had a square dance on Saturday. And on Friday, this is amazing, the recipient from Herndon High School put on a benefit concert to benefit the Student Peace Awards. She's a pianist.
Wow.
And she works with a group of high school students who are very accomplished musicians. And what they do as a group, and this is why she received her award, is they put on concerts to benefit people. So they put in concerts in retirement home, and then they do just benefit fundraising concerts. And so they did one for the Student Peace Awards.
I mean, that is remarkable to me, that you take a talent that you have and you figure out how to bring joy to people and at the same time raise awareness for this program and at the same time raise money for organizations doing this kind of work.
Yeah, it was awesome. And they really do bring joy. Their music was so beautiful.
Well, that just is very intriguing. You know, you think of kids who do car washes to raise money for the soccer team, but this is just a whole different way of thinking about how you can do something to benefit this particular program so that you can continue to recognize, reward, and to fund some of these initiatives out there.
Yeah, we were blown away when she made that offer. It was really wonderful.
So this of course, people, tell us your website address so that people can go and find out more information about how they can get involved, because I know our viewers are like, how can I get involved?
Yes, please do. Fairfax.studentpeaceawards.org, I think. There
it
you
is
are.
.org. I checked it out.
Okay, good.
And there's a lot of information. You can also access where the profiles of the students from this past year. You can, in the events, because you would think it was called Hoedown for Harmony.
That was it.
That was so catchy, like Hoedown for Harmony. And you don't actually have to know how to dance at all. Like there'll be somebody who will like walk you through it.
Yes, well, it turns out that square dancing is going out of style, which is really a shame because it was so much fun.
Well, see, now you're going to inspire, I hope we inspire a lot of people going, how can I help raise money for this organization by doing something fun like a dance or a benefit concert?
Yeah, totally.
Right? And I think, too, we want to encourage, there's 31 high schools in Fairfax County, but certainly private schools also have the opportunity to raise up the efforts of their students as well. And I'm kind of excited about that there still is room to scale it a little bit here and a little bit there.
Yes, there are. There is. And also for more students to participate. I mean, all the schools have participated at one time or another, but not necessarily every year. They don't always have a student or don't always find a student. And I think that probably in a class size of 900 and 2 classes, so 1,800, there's probably some student who deserves recognition.
I think you're probably right. Thank you so much, Margaret. This has been so eye-opening to me, and I love this program. I can't believe I didn't know you existed after all this time for the last 12 years. So thank you for bringing this information to us.
Thank you.
I would encourage all of our viewers at home to figure out how you can get involved. Show up to the rally on June the 2nd in front of the White House, and also reach out and help this organization recognize student peacemakers.
We're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so